So, what do you do when you get offended or when you've offended someone else? Like, how do you handle that? I know in the Bible, in Acts, it says, always have a conscience to avoid offense against God. And there's an article called Taking Offense that I kind of grew up with. And part of that says to be determined to not be offended when no wrong is meant, nor even when one is. I know I'm paraphrasing here, unless that offense be against God. So it's kind of saying the same thing that says in the Bible. But how do you handle it if you feel offended or if someone has felt very offended by something that you've done? I mean, we all face this situation. So I guess I can just share from my own experience what has happened for me. If someone has taken great offense from of something that I've done, and I of course don't intend that or want somebody to feel that, I sit with it until, because sometimes I know in the past, sometimes if somebody's taken offense at something, I sort of like, what are you talking about? Sort of you get defensive. Where I'm taking offense that they're taking offense, right? It's like kind of that vicious circle. And if I feel offended by somebody, I'm trying to think of a recent experience where that's happened. It doesn't really happen to me much now, but if it does, I just sit quietly until I can get past that place of personal sense. Because the only part of us that's being offended is a false sense of us that is that personal sense of us that's separate from the divine sense of us. And if I sit with it long enough and really go to the place of compassion, either for the other person or for myself, depending on which side of the equation we're on, um, and just sit with it until I don't feel defensive, until I can honestly have compassion for another person's perspective and feel a sense of generosity around kind of getting curious. Like, I wonder, maybe there's a blind spot that I don't see in myself. Maybe I've done something that I'm really oblivious to, which is always a possibility. It's like, and I never want to have anybody feel badly from something that I've done. So it's like being humble enough to look at either a blind spot in us or compassionate enough to look at maybe a blind spot in someone else. It's like we don't get offended when a 3-year-old can't do multiplication, right? It's like we just understand that, oh, maybe our little brothers or sisters aren't there yet, or our older brothers or sisters aren't there yet. It's like it's not an age thing. Um, so anyway, I just offer that. It's like, how can I love more? I mean, it really is. If it's in my experience where someone else has felt offended, it's like, well, then how can I love more? And if it's in my experience where I feel offended, well, then how can I love more? Like it just is, it gets really simple when we get out of kind of the personality version of it. And we just kind of go to God with it and say, I'm not going to offend God by declaring a falsity about someone else or about myself. Because if we're all children of God, then the offense about taking offense or being giving offense is really saying, I'm not declaring that God is here. I'm declaring something else. It's like, well, that's kind of not obeying the first commandment. So anyway, I keep it simple. And sometimes it takes a while. Like I'll write a long text explaining what I was doing, right? And then I'll look at it. I'll send it to myself. Like I won't do it to the person. I'll send it to myself and then I'll come back to it later and go, do I really need to say this? Nope. What is it that I'm saying in this that I can look at that is pointing out where I'm not being loving? Because it's always about what's going on in thought. Like, where can I correct that? Oh, okay. So what response could I write that would be completely devoid of any defense or sort of offense taken on my part, or that kind of personal sense thing, kind of getting in and twisting it around. So can I come up with a response to it that is completely loving, that really holds people high, that holds me high and holds them high, and doesn't sort of diminish anyone? There's a lot of opportunity for there's a lot of opportunity for this right now. So don't take offense when no wrong is meant, or even if a wrong is meant, unless that offense be against God. So go back to the Bible. Have a conscience to avoid offense toward God and toward men, it says in Acts 24:16, I think it is. So anyway, all right, lots of love. Talk to you later.